So, this is it. This is maybe the peak of this series of vlogging and following Jesus in Jerusalem, as I am at the entrance to the holiest Christian site perhaps on the planet, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Shalom everyone, welcome to another vlog by Danny the Digger. And this time I'm about to present perhaps the most important subject for Christian faith that relates to the Holy Land. For the issue of the fact that pilgrims come from all over the world to the Holy Land, to Jerusalem, in order to visit this site out of the belief that this is it. This is the place where Jesus was put to death, died, buried, and came back from the dead. And this indeed is a site that has been identified for these events in the 4th century. It was a meticulous event, a miraculous event. I'm losing my words in English here. When Helena, the empress, the mother of Constantine, she is probably the one to convince him to embrace Christianity, and then she is the one to come to the Holy Land and start marking the holy places for the Christian world. She marks a place on Mount of Olives, is the place where Jesus ascended up to the heavens, as well as taught his disciples, the church of Paternoster. In Bethlehem, she marks a cave as the place of the birth of Jesus, Church of Nativity. And when she comes here to Jerusalem, she is taken by Macarius, the local bishop, to this site, whose shape at the time is not totally clear, and he presents to her a place identified with the Golgotha, and next to it a place of the tomb. And validating that this is indeed the site, a giant church is constructed over it, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, completed in 335. It was 4 times bigger than the current one. But I have one troubling question to all of this amazing story. Did they hit the right spot? Because you need to remember that when Helena comes and when the Bishop of Jerusalem is in charge here, it is 300 years after the events have actually happened. It is 300 years after the time of Jesus. And I need to remind you that 30 years after the events happen here, the whole city is razed to the ground. And according to Eusebius, the church historian of the 1st century, when the rebellion broke out, the early Christian church, all of the members, left Jerusalem. They fled to Pella, a city in the Decapolis, a city that is in Jordan of today. When did they come back? Did they still remember where that place is? Did they continue to pass the memory of this location from father to son till the days of Helena? No one can answer this question in a clear, satisfying manner. However, there is archaeology. And archaeology today, analyzing what's beneath all of this building, can provide some very interesting insights, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's go. So first of all, you need to understand just how amazing this building is. Today, it is reflecting mostly the renovations conducted by the Crusaders of the 4th century church that was originally built here. There is little that can be seen. The facade, as you see it today, with those 2 doorways, the windows above, it's all remodeling by the Crusaders and completed in the days of Queen Melisenda, 1149. And if you look at the details, you can see that it's actually recycled elements in many cases. Sometimes they don't even match one another, suggesting that at least some of the architectural decorations here were perhaps recycled from a previous pagan temple. Now indeed, both Eusebius and St. Jerome indicate that before Helena showed up, before Christianity taking over, there was a Roman shrine here. But are there architectural evidence of this? In my chapter of the Nevsky Church, I have reviewed what some have suggested to be remains of a pagan temple, but in my humble opinion, the evidence is just not satisfactory. Today also this building is maintained in a very specific, fascinating way. Okay, Omar, Boker Tov, Omar.
Boker Tov.
He's in charge of the maintenance, and more important, he has the keys to this building. And the cleaning of the floor here is allowed only by the Greek Orthodox Church, which he represents. The stairway over here, however, is Catholic property. And believe it or not, about 100 years ago, there was a big fight, almost a war, over this very issue that Omar is doing right now, the cleaning of the first step. That could be maybe a chapter for a different vlog, a series about the church itself, because it has so many fascinating stories in it. And here you can see an Ethiopian about to enter an Ethiopian chapel and a Coptic church that is behind it. Then the green door over here bears some very bizarre looking writing. This is Armenian, and that means that the Armenians are controlling this part of the courtyard in front of the church. The doorway there in the back, I don't know if you can see this from the distance. Let me zoom in. Can you tell? Metochion Getsimanis. This is Greek. So this is Greek property, but above it, a minaret. Yes, there's also Muslim presence here. This building is fascinating on so many levels. And just to analyze the graffitis chiseled here in the Crusader era pillars is quite interesting by itself. Look, for instance, at this medieval graffiti, okay, from, I don't know, the 13th century or so on. There should be another one by Dandolo. Where are you, Dandolo? Here you are. Dandolo was the Duke of Venice. So he also came here and left his name, but my favorite is the one here on the top. Can you see it? It reads 1389, Natuzio Piero Vendramini was here. This is actually the oldest dated graffiti in the Holy Land. But again, we are not here to analyze the building and all the stories relating to it. We are here to address a very specific question. Is the building really built over the hill or the site of the crucifixion and the site of the burial? What is the archaeological evidence? So the first part, the evidence for the place of the crucifixion is right over here. Here you can see natural bedrock that is behind this glass in order to protect it. You can see that it continues upwards, and we're going to see the top of it in a minute. But this is a very important presentation of its side, its northern side, showing that it's bedrock. And that is very important because bedrock doesn't grow. If it's here today, it was here also 2,000 years ago. And if our assumption is correct, that all of this was an open field outside the city, and this protruding rock always stood there, the top of it is indeed a good place for public punishments. And that is exactly what the Roman wanted to manifest. That executions, crucifixions, and other forms of punishing the public when it's not disciplined should be as public as possible so everyone else learns the lesson, is terrorized, and is then disciplined. Don't even think of stealing anything. I'm reminding you that two thieves were crucified next to Jesus. And now, climbing up to the top, of course, enjoying the fact that it's a morning hour, winter, and still under pandemic, there is no line. So I can actually take some photos here of this significant part. Here is the top of the bedrock. You can see the bedrock both here, and you can see it also here, which is very important to show the height of this bedrock. And it is the centerpiece right here, which is so significant, with that silver circle over the hole. That hole is said to be the very place where the vertical beam of the cross was placed. Today, dominated by the Greek Orthodox Church, it is portraying the image of the crucifixion in a very Byzantine Greek style. Above the head of Jesus is the plaque that Pilatus placed, mocking him, placing a statement of his position that he claims to be Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, in Greek, Latin, and Aramaic. But it's, of course, just to humiliate him as he's dying on the cross with a crown of thorns. That is Pilatus' own sense of humor for the kingdom of heaven that Jesus was promoting. On both sides you can see Mary and John, and this is all semi-modern Greek decoration, but it is placed over real, old, original bedrock. And this is the first of arguments in favor of this place. This has always been here, and it is logical to assume that the Romans would conduct public punishments at a very prominent location where everyone could see it. But now let's move on to the tomb. What is the archaeological evidence of the tomb? Does it fit the descriptions of the text? Does it fit the shape of tombs that were in use in the time of Jesus? And first of all, we need to remember what the sources tell us. The sources are, of course, the Gospels. The four versions for these events, they all record the crucifixion taking place on Golgotha. The term Golgotha itself, it's an Aramaic word. It means skull. So was it called Skull Hill? Okay, here is an image presenting the deposition of the body of Jesus after he's dead, and beneath it is a skull. Was it called Skull Hill because of the death it was related to, because it had the shape of a skull? No one knows. Josephus, unfortunately, does not mention anywhere a Skull Hill. But this very modern wall mosaic is presenting the sequence of events after the death of Jesus. The body takes his body off the cross. They pull the nails out, they anoint it with oil and cover it with linen. But where will they bury him? The family is not local, they are from Nazareth. If there is a family burial plot, it's too far away. It's a Friday. They need to bury him quickly, in fact, because it's Friday afternoon. The person who saves the day, according to the text, is a guy called Joseph of Arimathea. He tells them, come bury him in my own new tomb. Remember these words, new tomb. And this is what they do. The Gospel of John adds a very critical word in that description, saying that the tomb was nearby. And indeed, it's just a stone throw away. Nearby the hill of the crucifixion, here is the edifice with a giant dome above it that is marking, can I tilt it all the way up? Yes, that is marking the site of the burial. But hold on, it is not underground, it is on street level. Was it originally underground? Again, this is where archaeology can be of great benefit. And again, I feel very fortunate that there's no line. Just one person inside. We'll wait patiently till they leave, and then we could review this as well. First of all, let us review the shape. The tomb of Jesus is comprised actually of two rooms. A first room which could also be used for preparing the body for the burial, and the interior is a single small room with a ledge on the right side. Now we know that the Jews would bury their dead back then in two ways. Either in putting the bodies, they were always in tombs, but either the body was placed on a ledge that was parallel to the side of the wall, sometimes it would have like an arch element above it, or inside a niche where the body would be pushed in, what we call today a kuch. Furthermore, we know that often a year later they would take the bones out and collect them into a small bone box so the ledge could be used again. That is called an ossuary or gloskama. Okay, this definitely belongs to the first type that I mentioned. This is a small room whose ledge is on the right side, a single place for a single burial. I don't want to disturb the ladies. A single burial for a single individual to be buried, which is not characteristic. Usually when we find tombs, we have already several places to put bodies inside. But here the text fits perfectly the shape of this tomb, because again, Joseph of Arimathea said, "Come, bury him in my own new tomb." And the word new implies it was just built. Please, I'm standing in line. Okay, so having just one place for the burial does seem to match the criteria, the historical criteria. But one very, very significant question: was this originally a cave? And let us wait till we can get in and see the evidence itself. Here, actually, the evidence was provided just a few years ago, when very important maintenance work was finally done. And they also removed some of the plaster here. Okay, here we go in. And they also removed some of the plaster here. So here you still have marble and tapestry and everything is covered up. But it is on this side that you should not miss noticing the fact that this is bedrock. Bedrock was exposed, meaning all of this was indeed originally beneath ground. Furthermore, when the marble slabs here were moved, they found some wood which was tested by carbon-14, and it proved to be from the 4th century. I can't believe I'm filming here for so long and not disturbing anyone. Wow. Yes, the 4th century wood that was found here proved that in the 4th century, indeed, this tomb was modified. And nowadays, you can see here a sign from 1810 indicating the renovations done here after some major damage occurred in the structure. And I really don't want to push my luck with the monk screaming at me, I'm filming inside. I was very, very lucky to get this far. At the entrance room, you also have here a pedestal with some rock on it. This rock is said to be of the stone that originally sealed this tomb. And of course, according to the story, the Sunday after the Friday of the burial, this stone was found moved and the tomb was empty. Now, if you read the version in the Synoptic Gospels, it wasn't really empty. It tells us that when the Marys entered, there was an angel inside explaining to them why the body of Jesus is not there. Because he has risen, he told them. But one very important word is added in the story. It says that the angel was sitting on the right side. And look, the ledge is indeed on the right side. Here's another important argument in favor of concluding that this is really the right place. But if this is still not enough to convince you, behind the tomb there is another very, very important archaeological item. An item that most visitors will miss unless they read in advance or their tour guide is familiar with it. And it is the little room over here in the back. The room itself, unfortunately, is under constant conflict of ownership between the Armenians and the Assyrians, so no one really maintains it properly, which is a shame. But the reason that I wanted to bring you here, let me put the light on, is because of this. Look what happens if you go through this door. Here you have another burial cave. This is of the latter type, the kuchim type. This was used for placing bodies, again, in the time of Jesus. Now let me pull out because I see people are behind me. And let me find a quiet spot where I can conclude this subject. Just a second. Here we go. What I've just shown you, what I've just shown you over here is actually more important than you think, because it demonstrates that there is another tomb here. And that means that this tomb is not just an isolated spot standing by itself. It is part of a necropolis, of a cemetery. Why is that so important to understand? Because it makes the tomb of Jesus in harmony with a place of burial in general. But more than this, it also means that all of this area was outside city walls. And that is very important because the book of Acts tells us that the crucifixion and therefore the burial had to be was outside city walls. And today we are definitely inside the city. We are in fact in the heart of the Christian quarter. Even when Helena comes here in the 4th century, the site is within city walls. So in theory, she should have told Macarius, what are you doing? This is impossible. This is within the city. No, both of them knew or understood that although in their days it was inside the city, apparently in the 1st century it wasn't. And I can validate this through archaeology. Yes, we haven't found the wall. There were many attempts to discover the wall somewhere in the back here. The Nievsky Church, for those who followed me on that chapter, or the Redeemer Church, were two places where they've tried to find, they actually argued that they have found traces of what's known as the second wall. But not all archaeologists agree upon it. However, the tomb here and the tomb here, both dating to the time of Jesus, do prove that this area was external. Okay, now there are all other stories that were added over time to validate that this is in fact the right place. The most famous of them is the finding of the cross. There is a story of Helena digging up another part of this church and finding a splinter that proved to conduct a miracle, and therefore it's part of the cross, and if it's found there, then this is the place. The only problem is it's not really mentioned in the 4th century chronicles, and the place of the finding of the cross was actually formed only in the days of the Crusaders as a chapel. So I have my reasons of doubts over that miraculous story, but you don't need it. Rational analysis of the finds, archaeological evidence, and comparative analysis leads me to conclude, people, this could really be it. This is actually a really good candidate for the location of the crucifixion, the burial, and in Christian faith, the resurrection. It all took place here. There's a good reason why all of these denominations are kind of quarreling over the custody of this building. However, there is another site, another famous site suggested in the 19th century to be the place of these events, and that is the Garden Tomb. But what does archaeology have to say about the alternative site? For this, you'll have to wait for my next presentation. And until then, of course, hit subscribe, hit like to make sure you keep getting more of these presentations, at least until the tourists are back. And for all of those who have supported me, thank you so much. This is so appreciated. This is really in need in order not to just enable me to keep recording, but also to get better gear like this mic. And I hope that I soon will be able to get a better camera through a better phone with especially better memory, so I can continue to do these presentations without being concerned of running out of battery, out of memory, and so on. So thank you all, and God bless you, and until next time, להתראות.